Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 2026 City Council meeting. I'd like to call that to order, and we're going to start with the invocation given by Council Member Sanjay Singhal. Please stand.
Please stay here. Please join me in prayers. Heavenly Father, we gather today with grateful hearts, thankful for our city, our community, and the opportunity to serve together. We ask for your guidance and wisdom for all of us, our mayor, the city council, city staff, and residents, as we all work together on behalf of the people we serve. Grant us clarity, integrity, and a spirit of cooperation. We give thanks to our police officers, firefighters, and EMS professionals. Please protect those who serve on our behalf, keep them safe in all circumstances, and bless their families for the sacrifice they share. Unite us as a community, encouraging respectful dialogue, thoughtful engagement, and a shared commitment to one another's well-being. May our actions be guided by compassion, service, and love as we move forward together. Amen.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to invite Sony Thacker to come up and give our pledges. She's from Clements High School, where she's the student council president, a varsity tennis team member, and a DECA officer state qualifier.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Recognitions. So I'm excited to recognize our great building safety team for achieving the highest Insurance Services Office Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule score in the history of the city. So first, I would like to call up Lisa Kosich-Meyer, Director of Planning and Development Services.
Thank you, Mayor. And like for the permits and inspections team to come on up as well, please, all of you join us up here. This is for you guys, so come on up. Absolutely. So while they're making their way up here, thank you for this opportunity, Mayor and Council, to highlight this wonderful team and their efforts. So as you mentioned, the city recently received news that we received our new ISO BSEG score, which stands for the Building Code Effectiveness Grading Schedule. It's a mouthful, but the highest one in the history of the city. So the Insurance Service Office, through VeriRisks, evaluates how well a city administers and enforces its building codes, including plan review and conducting its inspections, as well as the level of staff training, certifications, and the frequency of code updates and adoption, and the education and outreach that we do to describe and talk about our building codes and building safety. So Sugar Land earned a Class 2 commercial for commercial and a Class 3 for residential rating. And these are ratings out of 10. So, and in this case, a lower score is a better score. So I know that's kind of counterintuitive, but so for some context, the state average is a rating of 6. So our scores demonstrate obviously that we are well above the state standard. So these are the best ISO BSCEGS scores that the city has ever received. So having a low score benefits our community by reducing risk through stronger building codes and enforcement, which can lead to lower insurance premiums for our homeowners and businesses while improving overall safety for our community. So there's really a result, a direct impact that our community can result from this. So while this success is the result of a team effort and largely these groups up here, I want to highlight Joshua Doyle's and James Posey's, really their leadership through this effort. So just frankly, just 3 years ago, our rating was a little different. And just to be quite honest and transparent, but they took it very seriously and set out on a mission to improve our rating and went through a lot of work in implementing a variety of strategies to improve our score. So we invested heavily in training and professional certifications. And today we have the most certified team on our permits and inspections in the history of Sugar Land. And so being very proactive in advocating for the adoption of updated building codes, Joshua himself received the Master Code Professional certification, which is one of the highest ratings and honors and certifications that you can get. And this all demonstrates strong training credentials in an effort to have efficient plan review and inspections processes. So these scores reflect our commitment to public safety, ensuring quality construction and service excellence for our community. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us the opportunity to highlight this wonderful team and really their dedication to public safety for our community. Thank you.
Great, super. Let's give them all a big hand. So I'd like to just say, big thank you again to Joshua, James, Karen, Stacy, Dwayne, Robert, Ari, Jonathan, Monica, Laurie Lee, Kimberly, Darren, Stephen, Crystal, Angela, Andrew, and Adam. You did a great job. And Josh, would you like to say anything? No.
Sure, why not? So even though we get a lot of things, I would like to thank personally Mike. He may not remember this, but 3 years ago when we started kind of going through this process, we had reached the worst score any city could get, which was pretty embarrassing, even though it was out of our control. But Mike made a statement, and I don't know if he even remembers it, but he said, build me the best. He said, whatever that looks like, build the best. And I think we're there now. I would put us up against any building department in the nation. And even though we still have work to do, a special thanks to Brian, Lisa, Mike. I mean, if it wasn't for them supporting us and every crazy idea we had to get to this point, we wouldn't be here. And then thanks to the team, because, I mean, even today, DJ was taking a test today to get another certification to help advance himself, but really boost the city overall rating as well. So if it wasn't for the guys and ladies up here wanting to take tests, Angela became the first permit coordinator to achieve a certification as well through ICC. So it's just a steady stream of just people, trying to push forward to better themselves, but understanding it feeds into our team as a whole. So really, for me, always, thanks for the team.
Yay. Thank you. Congratulations again. We really appreciate you. And let's get a picture. Council, you just want to stay up there, do the crowd then?
Since we're such a small team, maybe we could crowd in a little bit. And shorter people maybe to the front. I'm sorry, I didn't invent height. You got it? Okay. Just a little tighter. Okay, there we go. There. Come on. All right, so here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I don't know why I count down.
And also, I see a scout in the audience. So I'm going to call on you if you could just give your name and the badge you're working on in your troop. So we're Glad to have you here at the council meeting tonight.
Hello, my name is Avian Sinesra, and I'm a Boy Scout in Pack 797, and I have been working on a merit badge named Citizenship in the World. Thank you for having me up here.
Great. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Next is item 6, public comment. So at this time, we'll open public comment for all non-public hearing item-related issues. So citizens who wish to address the city council regarding items on the agenda will have 3 minutes to speak. So please come forward as I call your name. So we have Eric Johnson, and he is speaking on item number 11C.
I'd like to address the City Council about the school board's draft proposal to close Sugar Mill. Close Sugar Mill Elementary.
Now, it said that you're speaking on the budget, but...
I'm going to get there, but sorry. I am talking about the budget because I have this script, but I'm not going to read from it. Basically, look, Sugar Mill Elementary is in the middle of our subdivision. If you close this school, it's going to not only destroy our school, it's going to destroy our subdivision.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's a Fort Wayne ISD matter.
I understand that is, but it's going to affect your budget, which is because it's going to affect our property values, thus your tax rolls, and thus your budget, correct? Yes. So I'm asking for your help. I realize you have no vote on the school board, but you do have the contacts to make phone calls. And if we can't count on you to support us in supporting our school, how can we support any of you in the next election? To be pointedly clear.
So anyway, I'm sorry. This is going to be amending the fiscal budget for the year 2025 to 2026, and so that's really off the topic. So
it's not, and it's also going to affect your bond election for any other future elections. You are going to be discussing the Imperial Sugar Plant and putting a bond forward for that. How can you expect us to support any bond resolution if you guys won't support us?
Okay. Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay. No further public comments, correct? Yeah.
No, Mayor, there is not.
Okay, so I'm going to close public comments. So next is item 7A, oath of office, boards and commissions oath of office. So if you're on the Animal Advisory Board or Zoning Board of Adjustments, please come forward for the swearing in. So now I'm going to administer the oath of office to those appointed to City of Sugar Land's boards and commissions. So anyone else from AAB or ZBA? Okay, so anyway, so now just raise your right hand. So I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of, and state your office, of the City of Sugar Land, County of Fort Bend, State of Texas, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, and the charter and ordinances of the city. And I furthermore solemnly swear or affirm that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, or promised to pay, contributed or promised to contribute any money or valuable thing, or promised any public office or employment as a reward to secure my appointment or the confirmation thereof, so help me God. Well, congratulations, and thank you in advance for your service. Next, item 8, consent agenda. All consent agenda items listed are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion unless a council member wishes to pull an item off of consent. Okay? Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Watley and a second by Councilmember Single. Let's vote at this time. Okay, let's see, well, it passes 6-0. Then we've got Councilmember Miller. Did you see how his vote came in? He was... Thumbs up, okay. So it passes 7-0. Then next is item 9. It's the workshop for the Imperial Historic District presented by Jessica Hubble, Assistant Director of Redevelopment. So it's discussion and direction regarding the Imperial Historic District community visioning process and proposed guiding pillars for redevelopment. Jessica?
Hello. Before I get started, I do want to acknowledge that the consultants with TPUDC, Brian Wright and Anna Blevins, are on the phone. So I just want to confirm that they can hear and we can hear them appropriately. Do you see them? One second. Let's make sure we can hear you here. It is. There you go. Thank you.
One more time.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Awesome. Good to go.
Hello?
Yeah, you're good to go.
All
Okay,
right.
so I'm going to be pitching it over to them after a few introduction slides. Again, this is a workshop, so they're going to facilitate a little bit more discussion. But just to give some background in case nobody knows about this project, which would make me really sad. Hang on, let's see if I can make this move. What? No. Yeah.
Click off the screen. There we go.
Got it. Thank you. So just a little reminder of how we got here. So there's a long history when it comes to Imperial and this development. So from 2003 to 2024, there were multiple unsuccessful projects led by private developers. They were unsuccessful for a variety of reasons. May 2024, the redevelopment team took a tour in the Austin area and really started to look at other redevelopment projects that had city-owned land and worked with a master developer to kind of see different structures that were out there to see if there's anything that could be done. In August 2024, the Puma project officially stalled, and so we began to start really preparing for some alternative options. November 2024, we presented the acquisition and master developer model to the City Council. And then in February 2025, City Council approved to move forward with the acquisition. And then in June 2025, we secured ownership of the 50 acres. So just a little background, the next most important step for us to do after acquisition was have the community visioning. So there was because it was always privately owned and developer-led, there wasn't really a lot of community discussion or engagement that actually was back and forth. It was more so, I'm the developer and this is what I'm going to do, and you provide feedback after. That's typically the structure. So we wanted to do it a different way where we actually listened to the community and kind of heard what their thoughts were around this this development. And so we outsourced a third-party consultant to handle this because that is their expertise. And so that's where TPUDC came in, and Brian and Anna, if you attended any, were there leading it. So they're a planning and design firm. They bring a myriad of experiences in coding, entitlements. They've acted as a developer and a consultant before. And so they brought this unique combination of their experiences to help us plan for this historic district. And then how they were selected, the city has a city services, like professional library that we can choose from. So they were already on that pre-approved list. So after we interviewed 3 different firms, staff selected that firm to move forward with because of their expansive experience in community engagement, which is what we knew we needed for this project. So an overview of the scope that was presented to them was to define a high-level vision and goals for redevelopment of the Imperial Historic District through site analysis and public engagement. They were to engage with the residents, stakeholders, and public officials. They were supposed to do extensive review of current and completed planning documents and studies to build upon existing knowledge, because again, this project's been going on for a very long time. So there's a lot to learn, a lot to build upon, and it's important to understand that background. And then again, they were to engage in dialogue with the community, get feedback on hopes for the future of this site, provide different avenues for that feedback, and then basically provide a final document summarizing what they did, background information, and recommendation on a vision and guiding pillars. And one question that we were really trying to ask was, what does the community want with this site? What level of adaptive reuse do we want with the char house? Like, what does it actually look like? Because those questions had never really been asked before. And so if you didn't get to attend, this is what was offered. So there was a 4-day charrette. It occurred at 2 different locations. There was an opening session, 3 topic-specific meetings. One was more on housing, one on mobility. It just kind of went on public space. And then there were 3 days of open studio office hours for one-on-one meetings. So you could go into the visitor center and actually talk directly with Brian and Anna and ask a lot of questions and just have a more private setting if you preferred. And then there was a closing and recap session. The opening and the closing are recorded, and they are on the project webpage, so you can always go back and look at those. The topic ones are not, because there was so much open dialogue, you wouldn't be able to hear the conversation. And so all in all, TPUDC, they were directly available for public input for approximately 30 hours within that week. So some of the outreach tactics. So our target was to reach, all Sugar Land residents, businesses, stakeholders, but also engage the broader region as well, because we know many people that came here, like their parents worked at Imperial or came here because it may not live directly in Sugar Land. So we needed to reach the broader audience as well. And also making sure that developers and consultants and people knew what we were doing. And so what we did was a lot of different strategies for the different groups that you see here. One of the main ones was the grassroots marketing. We found in this community, it really helps to get out there and put feet on the ground and have conversations with our residents. And so we had booths at community events like Sugar Land Better Block. We held meetings with neighborhood residents to explain the plan and get their insight. Residents like Venetian, The Hill, Brookside, Belknap, Imperial, Mayfield. We were at National Night Out. We went to Venetian Estates, I think 3 different groups at The Hill, and then Imperial. We had a site cleanup where we engaged with people from the public and city staff to help us organize some of the bricks that are on site. All the bricks on site are from previous buildings and can actually be used in the restoration of the char house, or can be factored in the development in other ways through landscape and a variety of things. So we wanted to get those secured in the 3-bay warehouse so those can be used. We supported and participated in the Imperial Char House Water Tower 100-year celebration, which was amazing. And then participated in many events just in the Houston region to increase awareness on what Sugar Land was doing with this site and how we were approaching this site. And then also presented at Sugar Land 101 and other community events as requested. So because we know not everybody follows social and it can easily be missed depending on what you look at often, we also went ahead and did some banners and distributed yard signs. The neighborhood groups that we met with were really helpful in putting some of these out in their neighborhoods, and Code was really helpful from not taking them down. I begged that they didn't take them down. And then we had 3 big banners around the property because, it's just very hard to engage with everybody here in this community. So we were really trying to hit it from a lot of different ways. And then we had one at the Chamber of Commerce to try to touch touch kind of that business side and the people that go there. Digital promotion. So as we know, digital is everything. We've got to get it out there if we want it to circulate. So we shared the news via community liaison, so circulated with the neighbors. We have an email listserv, and then we did all the major social medias. And then we did some advertisements. And so we actually placed some advertisements in community impact. We've heard from a lot of our residents that community impact is one of their most trusted sources and one they look at the most. And so we did actually do an ad in an e-newsletter, and then we did an online presence and also added it to their event calendar. And so because of all these different avenues, we were really able to get a pretty vast reach. So the paid ads related to the community impact garnered around 135,000 impressions. So looked, touch points, somebody saw it, hopefully shared it. The earned media that we got from that, from the Chronicle and KHU, I believe, was 2.4 million in reach. So again, that's free. That was in addition to what we did that we got just from doing the ads on community impact. Social media, there was around 170,000 views. We did 10 plus engagement events and then 25 yard signs and 3 banners. And so the key takeaway was, you know, there was strong participation, which was consistent with other peer cities. When you look at, like when TPUDC looks at how other communities rank in this, we had a really strong participation. And then we also saw too that like the staff presence with consultants improved the interactions. Like they really, the attendees really enjoyed talking to the consultants and having to being able to have that like high level discussion. So some of the feedback that we got, we had around 360 participants, 60 survey responses. That map there shows where those addresses were. So obviously a lot on the north side, but you see a good representation throughout the city. And then those were just some quotes and specific feedback that we got back, because we're always trying to figure out what we can do better, if people like it, what we need to change for next time. And so we were lucky in that we got some good feedback given to us. And then a way that we can track sentiment as a city, because again, there's only so many ways that we can really see how we're doing on a grand scale. We use a platform called Zen City. It basically monitors social media sentiment. And so most of the conversation occurred on city-led channels with 55% of the official posts and interactions. It was predominantly positive, almost no negativity, and 20% neutral. Those are just like those comments that you can't really grasp or understand, or like a like or a share. There's some certain blind spots. So that's why we kind of look at all of this as a whole to see how we've reached and got feedback from it. And so with that, I'm going to pitch it over to Brian, and he's going to walk you guys through some more discussion on the findings and the proposed pillars and vision, and then we will both be available for questions at the end. So Brian, you let me know when you're ready to advance slides.
All right, thank you so much. So glad to be here with you all tonight. We had such a good time working with the community and going through our process. And as Jessica said, just the feedback that we got was so helpful in crafting our report. So going to the next slide. For us, we always like to start with the work that's come before us. You all happen to be a community that has, you all happen to be a community that's done lots of planning. You have lots of great studies and different documents that were a real resource for us. And so we're able to study those, and they help launch us off in the right direction. Really what we needed to do, knowing that so many had come before us and looking at this site, we needed to establish what it was we were doing. And so as people were participating, we were trying to make it clear that, what this effort is a way to help establish a cohesive vision and goals for the district, and also to look at market realistic options for the future of the Char House. You guys had done a market study prior to our arrival, so that was very helpful as well. And then crafting a strategic vision report for the city, so that you guys can include that in all that you're doing as you're looking, figuring out how to develop it, as how to partner with the developer, what the options are for the future, and really to create something that you can put into the hands of the developer to say, here's what the city's looking for, as opposed to, as was said earlier, you guys are responding and reacting to whatever any developer who came along was, wanted to put before you. Taking a proactive approach, which is so smart for you all to do this, so that the developer's not guessing, because as was said, a lot of our clients are private developers as well, and really they're looking for guidance. They come to a community to get involved, to obviously try to do something that's profitable and has a good return on their investment. And a lot of times they feel like they're just sort of guessing. Yes, there's zoning documents that are in place, or studies, or whatever, but it isn't clear sort of the vision oftentimes. So this process was intended to help, so you could put something in their hands and say, here's what the community has said for the first time that they would like to see, as opposed to them saying, here's what we don't want to see because the developer has delivered something they didn't like. So what it's not, though, is was us creating a specific master plan or even renderings for the site, even though that's something that we do. In this case, we kept it very, very high level. We aren't submitting a development plan for the site. So this isn't to cause development to occur. And we aren't forcing a developer to do something with the site. It's really a matter of getting the intentions out there of the community so that you have a higher likelihood of a developer having a smooth process. If you partner with them or however you decide to move forward, it's a smooth and enjoyable process where everybody can be excited about it, as opposed to sort of a friction-based process that ultimately creates something that is okay, as opposed to something that is amazing from the first plan that's delivered. Next. The way that I like to think about it is that this is really a playbook and not a blueprint, right? So it's like, when you're looking through a playbook, you say, okay, well, here's what the opportunity is. We see that, we're at this point in the game. We have this far to go. It looks like this may be a good strategy. And then the next play moves forward and something happens, something changes, you fumble, you do whatever, and you go, okay, well, now we've got to pivot, or you get an interception. How about that? Even a more positive example. And now you've got to pivot and do something different than you could never lay out something like a football game, for instance. First we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And so a blueprint does. It says, here's first this, then this, and this. And so what we wanted to do is create something that was dynamic and living and could respond to whatever opportunities present themselves moving forward. Next. So the document that's set up, there's a vision statement that was created, and based on our sort of methodology, if you will, was to hear from the public, hear from all the participants, and we talked to staff, all the different departments, it was actually remarkable. I want to commend your city staff. It was the first time we'd ever had such a turnout for staff to come and participate and give us their feedback. And so much so that I said, well, who's running the city if you're all here, and, but it was wonderful. The insights, both professionally and also just some of them, were citizens and even lived in the nearby neighborhood. So there's that. And then as well as the prior studies and plans, the market study, et cetera, and then sort of overlay or underlay that with our, experience working around projects around the country. And so a vision statement was created, and it says, create an authentically Sugarland district that's rooted in the history of the city and designed for the future. It's set up with these guiding pillars, tell the story, create a living district designed for gathering and connect and enhance mobility. I'll share more about those in the next slide. So with Tell the Story, there was, obviously this site is historic, it has, quite a history. And the request was to really share an accurate and balanced account of the site's history. So we're respectfully addressing both the difficult chapters and the achievements. And so rather than sort of having just a museum exhibit, if you will, what really sort of surfaced was the idea of sort of weaving the history throughout the district. So you have lots of different artifacts and things from the historical use of the property, and various things that people in the community have accumulated or saved over the years. And so finding ways to incorporate that into the overall experience of the place, so that you know have a sense of discovering the history and the story as you go, was something that came up and is quite interesting. Next slide. Creating a living district, and so the discussion there was about having this be a place that is active, all in the daytime and the nighttime. It's obviously a big investment for anybody who gets involved in this, and also a big investment that the city's contributed thus far. And so you want to make sure that it's having the most beneficial impact possible. So making sure that it's being utilized throughout the day is really important. And then also it's profitable and revenue generating. The idea of creating a place for residents and for visitors is important. And the idea of having income generating and experiential businesses. I'm sorry, with a fire truck going by. Hold on a second. Having income generating and experiential businesses is a mix with office and a mix of different housing types. So getting people living within the district as well really helps to have it, give it that sort of 24/7 vitality. And those were things that came out of the process that people were excited about. Next. The idea of design for gathering. The city is so diverse. It was wonderful. It was something that I wasn't aware of before coming to town to work on the project. And so really finding ways to embrace that and celebrate it, and reinforcing the bonds with the residents, and having a place for people to gather. Some of the ideas that came out would be, really focus on having something for everyone. And what that means is, it means a lot of different things. But some of the things that came up were people at all ages and stages of life. Also people with, various lifestyles. Some people are single, some people are married. Some people are, want to be in the thick of things and be active, and some people want to just come and visit an active and exciting place. And so, making sure we've got, the types of spaces that facilitate both larger gatherings and intimate, sit downs with just a few people talking to one another. And then back to the idea of having a variety of housing options throughout the district. The idea of having people be able to live above shops in a live-work building, or having townhouses or some multifamily apartments. But some of the things that we heard were, that people weren't interested in having it be exclusively one thing, all multifamily, and specifically, people commented on not wanting it to be an apartment complex, in a conventional sense. So sort of suburban style, garden style apartments with a bunch of parking lots all around them, and, breezeways and all that. They wanted it to resemble, kind of lean into the authenticity of the buildings that are there, of what was there before, that sort of architecturally is a little bit funky. You've got your town square development, which is great. And, for me, it's so exciting to see that you guys were able to accomplish that, to build something like that from nothing. But it's its own unique place, and it's a bit more formal than, what people talked about for this site. And so leaning into that sort of industrial aesthetic, and finding those little moments and spaces between buildings, and the unexpected and exploration that we talked about before is what can make it exciting and active, in a place where all sorts of people want to be, regardless of whatever their preferences are. Next. And then we talked about this pillar of connect and enhance mobility. So the idea was to find ways to connect to the existing development of neighborhoods that are nearby, of the established neighborhoods that are there, as well as the other things, that are entertainment based already. You've got, the stadium and other things. But then also connecting across the highway, Highway 90A. And so that's obviously a challenge right now because it's sort of this site is disconnected from everything south of the highway. So how do you connect? And then how do we find ways to improve traffic circulation? When you look at the existing development that's there, you have really large scale infrastructure. The roads that go through and to this site are 4 lanes with a median and all of that. But it's based on the traffic that's generated now, it's such a large piece of infrastructure isn't warranted, and that's because there was forethought with the idea of this site redeveloping, and so that road was sort of built in anticipation of this. So that's good that that's there. But finding ways to connect this site so that it doesn't become a big traffic problem. The elephant in the room the whole time was, what about the train tracks? And that obviously requires its own sort of exploration. And each developer who's come before has looked at that. And it's my understanding that none of the developments that were proposed on the site that didn't come to fruition were because of the train track. So that's encouraging. So one interesting idea that came up through the process was the idea of having a pedestrian bridge over the highway so that people can connect to both sides, or even possibly having a parking structure on the one side of the highway, and then you walk across. And maybe even the bridge could interface directly with the char house, and then you could go through. But again, those, for any of you who are participants in the process, you go like, wow, this is a very high level document. We talk about very specific things. So just kind of sharing some of these ideas that came up. So sort of honoring the contributions of those ideas. But this document wasn't supposed to be that detailed. And then also looking at non-vehicular options, making sure that, everything that happens in and around the district is both walkable and bikeable. And then we also heard from a lot of people, a really good idea about activating the waterway. So you've got the water right there. And right now, as most industrial buildings did, complexes did, they kind of turned their back to it, and it was more of a where we dump our waste, or we maybe we'll move stuff along the waterway. But in this case, you guys have that great amenity, and so finding a way for the district to really embrace that, and even picking up on some of the you have a bit of a kayak culture there already, and so maybe one of the specific ideas that came up was the idea of having a bit of a kayak hub, so you could put in at some of the other locations along the river there, and then end up at the Imperial District, which would be really kind of a unique scenario. Next. And then the char house, of course, it's been discussed at great length over the years for sure. So the question was, what should happen to the char house? And most of the people said that it should be preserved and activated. Some people were ambivalent about it. Those who've been here for any period of time were very passionate about that it should stay and be preserved. So for those who haven't been keeping up with it, the city's underway right now on the phase 1 of preservation efforts that are really focused on the structural repairs and making sure the building integrity is maintained. And then, that work's going to continue for 18 to 24 months. But that means that it's just kind of stabilizing the building, if you will. But there are lots of ideas that came up through the process. On the next slide, we can talk about some of this. So one of the things that came up probably most frequently was the idea of a museum. And ultimately, after I heard it several times, I started asking people, it's like, is there a big need for a museum here? And, it was sort of like, some people said, well, we currently have a museum. And in fact, we're sitting in it. We're sitting in, that was our location there. And there's the timeline and stuff. And so people talked about having it be more dynamic, though, having rotating exhibits and things like that, coordinating with local historical groups. But then when I asked about the need for a museum, a lot of people said, well, I just don't know what else it could be. And it's historic buildings, and this is a historic place, so yeah, a museum could work. And I said, oh, okay, well, fair enough. We heard that lots of people were interested in a food hall or event space. Some people had very specific types of events and food in mind that they shared with us, which was fun to hear. But there was a strong desire for more local restaurants and rather than chains coming in. And so they really, again, leaning into that authenticity of the place, of the site, and having it be a little bit different than your other gathering places that have more sort of national brands in them. Some people said maybe multi-level food hall, but when you look at the site, if you've ever been in the 3-bay warehouse that's there, it's just sort of begs to be a food hall. So while the food hall idea came up and the event space came up for the Char House, maybe it goes over there, or maybe you don't have those things. But and then we heard a lot of people talk about a hotel. As I mentioned, you did a market and feasibility analysis in May, and it said that the hotel wasn't really that feasible of a use. And the reason is a bit of a saturation, that you have lots of hotel rooms already online, and maybe even some more in the pipeline. I can't remember, but the question for me is, yes, but do you have something, a hotel that would be in a district like this would be so unique and so special and so cool? Might it actually sort of overcome those sort of typical market forces? But you certainly wouldn't want to move forward with that just on a hunch, So I'm glad to have that market study. So it makes me sort of recommend that less aggressively, because it seemed like a no-brainer. But the idea of it being more of a boutique, could work well. But it's the building is a bit complicated, and sort of turning it into that could be potentially costly. But as the city, looks at how they may be involved and partner or do whatever in a potential development, if you look at a public-private partnership or whatever strategy you all use, like other cities have used around the country successfully, some of those types of strategies could allow for some of those costs to be overcome more easily by a potential development partner. And then sort of lastly, people talked about the idea of a lookout point. And so this was sort of another fallback. I don't know, somebody's tall. And so maybe there could be a lookout. And it occurred to me that one of the easiest places to have a lookout might be in the silo or on top of the silos. So we're working on a development project right now that's got just a regular farm silo in it. And we're actually converting it into an observatory and putting a spiral staircase up the middle of it, so that you have an observation platform at the top. You actually have stairs, or I mean, it's just a ladder up the side of the silos right now. But I think that's what I was like, oh wow, it's pretty tall, pretty good views up there. So anyway, all of these things, came up amongst many other things, but these were kind of the main ideas for the Char House. And so it could be, one of these things, it could be none of these things, or it could be a combination of these things. And the building is substantial, and it could hold a lot of different things. So I'm really excited to see, sort of what it becomes and what makes sense from a market perspective. Next. So again, that is just a very high level sort of recap of some of the things that we heard, the sort of main points of this vision document. But hopefully it's spurred some ideas and some questions or comments. And so we'll be happy to open up for discussion. Some things I may be able to answer, or Anna could answer, maybe not. Some things staff may answer, and some things we may have to say, that's a great question. Let us look into that. I'll turn it back to you all.
I just want to reiterate just one more time. So the goal here is we want to get your kind of final stamp of approval. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Does anything need to be relooked at or addressed? Because ultimately we want to bring this back in a form of a resolution that would be adopted by you. So it would be kind of solidified in place. It would go into the request for qualifications when that's released, so that the master developers who submit for it will have a better understanding of what the priorities are. And so then as they work through that process, especially down to the request for proposals, they can say, hey, I can meet, the living district this variety of ways. I could meet this variety of ways. And so it just gives them a much clearer baseline of where to start. So the goal here is just to get your feedback on what's presented, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, but comments and questions. Okay, Councilmember Vandahar.
First of all, Brian, great job. You and your team did a good job. I participated in most of the sessions, and they were very well run, and I was very, very pleased with the turnout we had from the public. You guys have done a good job of capturing that. One observation that I make and suggestion, as I listen to your talk, and I've read the report that you guys prepared, I don't see any mention of flexibility. I think that it's extremely important that we recognize that what we decide on today or next month, whatever the timing may be, we all recognize that this is going to be a multi-year project, 10 or 20 years potentially. And we all also know that during a time period that long, things are going to change a lot. And there needs to be that needs to be recognized and acknowledged in this report. So I was thinking that, in the section that we titled a living district, there should be some conversation about this is a living district for all the reasons you described, but it's also a living district in the sense that we will adapt and change as market forces change. I think that's something that we should include in the report.
That's great feedback. And that's also, too, why we call it guiding pillars, because those are, they're themes or focus areas that are supposed to get you to that realized vision. It's supposed to be something that can ebb and flow and adjust and change. And so that's a great point, and we can definitely add that in there.
Councilmember Stingle.
Hello, Brian. Jessica, thank you very much for a good study. I participated in some of the session and talked to the people, so we have some idea of what people want. My question is, did you also talk to the other stakeholders, which are developers, the previous developers who tried to do something there but did not work, just to learn the lesson from what did not work? Because we also don't want to go to the same route again and again. So it would be good to learn of the limitation, and both financial as well as physical. So did you have any discussion with any of the developers?
Yeah, I don't think that we did. We didn't have any opportunities to talk to them. We did have opportunity to talk to some interested developers who came showed up to the process, which was exciting. I think that, and I asked around, staff or various other people who had been involved over the years, like, hey, do you know why this thing didn't happen or that thing didn't happen? But I didn't have any direct input from them, which, to your point, if they're willing to give it, because sometimes when things don't go well, people are sort of like, okay, I'm done with that place or that project or whatever. But if you have that opportunity, I think that could be instructive, not necessarily to make a change to this document per se, but just going forward, just as a sort of strategic guidance for all of you, and when you're thinking about how to partner with the developer or however you want to move it forward.
Yeah, and I want to add, staff has had previous conversations with developers before this all kind of kicked off. And once the city took ownership, and I believe, some of our leadership has too. Once the city took ownership, that removed a huge barrier, which was a financial barrier to get on the site. To buy the site and then redevelop the whole thing was a huge undertaking. So the city was always going to have to be involved in some way, but there was such a barrier to even get started because the land cost was so much, and then you factor in everything else. So a lot of the developers that we did talk to were like, now that the city's involved, it's a different ballgame, because it's more negotiable, it's more flexible, it can be long-term. Developers can't hold land for 20, 30 years. They need to get it flipped and get revenue going. Cities are different. And so there's just a different structure that can be approached when public entities own something. So we've received positive feedback about that from that side of the spectrum.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Anna just reminded me that the president of SUBA participated, and maybe their head of architecture, and we had a great conversation at the end of the discussion, and just sort of one-on-one, they came up and talked to us, and he was very excited about, because when I host a community event like that and we're talking, like, I don't really hold back and worry about like, what's somebody going to think about this or what I say or whatever. It's just like, it needs to everything needs to come out. And so it was interesting to, they just had a really positive response to it, and they seemed really excited and were, looking forward to, participating in however they could with the portions that they control. So yeah, that was I could be thanking for that, Anna.
Councilmember Watley.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, you did an incredible job. Of course, we all attended your events, and the feedback was great. 360 people, and not all of them, a lot of them came from the area in District 1, but they came from everywhere, so that feedback was generated by a lot of people. And one of the concerns was, and we had talked about this earlier, that only a handful of people who were associated with the Char House would actually care. But I think we saw through this that the whole city cares. And so that means we're on the right path to keeping the Char House, to investing in renovating it and keeping it. So thank you for everybody that came out from the whole city, because you didn't have to come out and do this, but you did, and we got great feedback. Jessica, what's our plan to keep the public involved as we move forward? I know, and by the way, this is our first time as a council to see this report, so we didn't know anything you didn't know before it was published. And I love the fact that it's very transparent. We're learning as you learn, and we're not going to know much more than you know, because we want to keep it open and fair to everyone. So we're just seeing this tonight together. And on that same thought process, we want to keep the public involved as we move forward. And I know the next process is to put this in some type of RFP. And when we look at that, we will hopefully get developers that are interested. What's the next step after that? Does the public even get to see that again, or how's that work?
So the goal, so we would do a request for qualifications, which we should get a big pool there of basically people just telling you what they're good at, how they're good at it. Give you some examples. That would be narrowed down to the top 2, which would be something that comes to, council to see. And then we would have the top 2 submit a request for proposal, which would be a much more specific design or plan or idea, have a bit more information on their financial structure and how they see this working over time, but also to the council member's point, the flexibility that's needed. This is going to be a phased project, right? The land has already been sitting there for 20 years. We just started. So Town Square took 15 years. So we have to be, really keep that in mind, that we're at the ground level. We want to set this up for success and do it right, and not hold us to something that can't be done in 10 years because the market changes so much. And so once we get through that process, a developer would be selected, then you would basically go into kind of like a negotiation period where we do the master development agreement, where again, a lot of the other little nuances that were talked about during the visioning, like focusing on small business, putting a lookout area, that maybe could go somewhere else, maybe not the Char House. All those little things can also interweave in a master development agreement. So it's not like all that feedback is lost. We take it and we kind of carry it with us the whole way through, because the developer's going to want to know that. They're going to want to know what was said. And then once the developer's selected, they would have their whole community engagement stuff they would do. I mean, there's endless possibilities. Again, the city owning it, we can ask for certain things. We can ask for certain engagement and involvement. We would encourage community development. We've been very clear that the community development community engagement is very important and essential, especially when we're talking about the historical pieces of everything. There's a lot to learn. And so it can really look many, many different ways and evolve how we need it to.
Thank you. I think what you're talking about is crucial, that we understand that there is going to be flexibility, and there's going to be a time frame involved, and it's going to be a long one, because we want to do it right?
Yes.
And my follow-up question is this, and it's coming from many of my constituents. Are we going to activate any part of the property in the meantime, since it's city-owned, and we have possibly the ability to do so?
That's the plan. So once the preservation gets started and they get that building kind of secured, the fence up, make sure that they can do what they need to do safely. There is a little infrastructure work we need to do for the children's area, but won't take long. We're doing that in-house. But once that's done, the goal would be to have like pop-ups, add some art out there, food truck, things. So that'll be another way that we'll continue to engage with the community and get them involved in maybe like art selection or, various things like that. Because as you guys know, during the procurement process, we have nobody can really talk, right? They can only talk to the purchasing manager. So it will get really, really quiet on that side. But there will be pop-ups in that side of the city and around the city that we're hoping to get people out there. Once we know we can do it safely and keep people out of buildings they need to stay out of, and just make sure that we can control it appropriately. But that is the plan. Yes, ma'am. And all of that would be put on the webpage whenever we get it solidified.
Councilmember Betcher.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And Brian and Jessica, just want to reiterate what the other council members have said, but great job with putting the community activities together. There was a lot of positive feedback on the being involved in the input to the process, and I think it was much appreciated. So on that, to follow up on Councilmember Watley's questions, I was asking, what is the council's next step? From what you explained about the request for qualifications and then picking the top 2 proposals, is council involved in any way or form during the process up until that's selected, or are we kind of in the dark until after the developer's selected and then we start to provide input, or what's the timeline for that one?
Meredith, please jump in if I misspeak on the legal rules. But so in economic development, there's an economic development committee that consists of mayor and 2 council members. And so we run a lot of these things by them. So at minimum, once we get all of those submissions, those would be presented to the EDC. And then when it goes down to the top 2, I don't want to misspeak, but that would be a more holistic discussion that would take place in executive session and things like that. And so there are certain things that we're allowed to do and required to do, but there would always be council looking at it, touching it, getting involved. It is not a staff decision in any way.
Okay, so being on an EDC, I'll see those, but the rest of council will not. Is that how I understand that?
Unless I'm incorrect, I think there's rules against quorum.
Yeah, you'll see it in EDC, and then we can bring it back in executive session.
Okay.
And then
we
everybody
can do
will see it.
confidential FYIs along the way as well.
Okay. One additional comment or feedback was going to be, if we're looking for requests for qualifications, is it possible from the preliminary, whenever they're submitting their documentation, is it possible just to have them put in, hey, here's our very high level idea of what we could do with the property, and use that as part of the evaluation process?
I think we'll get that from some people. I mean, we're definitely going to try to make sure, because we've already started on the RFQ draft. It's a long document that has a lot of information in it, and it'll take a lot of time for developers to go through it. And then we'll also have checkpoints with them, like it's been released, you have questions, because they will. But yeah, we're going to ask certain questions of what do you see? What financial structure do you envision? Just to try to pull out some of those ideas, because there's a lot of different ways it can be done. And then those are discussions that we talk with through like our legal counsel and our financial advisors. There's a lot of people that go into these discussions on the best path to take. And then ultimately, again, it comes back to council. So yeah, we should get some ideas from people of what they see. Because again, if we're not going to be open to their structure, they might pull out. So.
Okay, thank you. Should I keep going, or you want to jump over?
Okay, yeah, let's jump back to Councilmember Bandahar for a minute here.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll circle back.
Yeah, hey, Jessica, you said something earlier that I want to kind of hit on a little bit. We're going to have these respondents to the RFQ that will be submitting their ideas, but we will draft that RFQ in a manner that hopefully encourages that. I want to make sure that we do it in a manner that encourages people to be bold and trailblazer. I don't want this to be curtailed because we're afraid that a particular piece might fail. Let's put everything on the table and let's see what works. Okay. As we went around, you mentioned the process. We as council went around and looked at a couple of different developments in the state, and one of the key takeaways I got from that was the people that started their respective processes had really bold, far-reaching visions, and that's how you make something like this successful. So I want to make sure that we encourage that as we go through the process, and that we, as the owners, are not afraid to make that happen.
Understood. Councilmember Betcher, back to you.
All right, so now we'll get to the hard questions. So from the financial side, I realized there was a study, and I guess the hotel wasn't looked at favorably. Was that based on the square footage of the building and the projected cost per night of stay? Or do you want to comment on what makes it non-feasible with the current study?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things. It's the amount of hotels that we already have and the what's in the pipeline. But 2, the size of that building and the cost of which it will take to turn it into a hotel would be really high, because there's no access, there's no bathrooms, there's no elevator, there's no floors on a lot of those levels. And then also what size of room you could actually make and the price that you would have to charge for that room to get a return. Are people paying that right now in the market? So again, the market feasibility is a snapshot in time. That doesn't mean that 5-6 years from now, a developer can do another one and it looks different. But like in today's 2025, it was not deemed as feasible unless we were willing to put a lot of money behind it, because the developer would expect that we would come in and support that if we were the one demanding it, so to speak.
And then
There's a lot of things that play into it.
Follow up.
Right. So there's a couple different ideas thrown up about there. One of them being the museum or, park space, which is obviously the no revenue, largest cost of the city. And then of course there's the retail, residential, and other, revenue generating ideas. So with that, I know there's some feasibility, but ultimately, now that the city owns it, how much is this whole project expected to cost? And then who's paying for it?
I don't think there's any way to know that until we know exactly what the project would be. And that would be determined later, but it would be a few different entities, right? The developer will have their funds that they put in. There's a TERS on site that can be used for public infrastructure. The city, the EcoDev corporations potentially could be utilized. There's many different funding structures that can be used. You could even create potentially new financial tools. So it's really just, you have to identify what the development is, what those things are, and then how you can legally pay for them, and what's your kind of max of what you're willing to pay, right? Everything, we talked about it a lot in the visioning. Everything can be done with endless funds, right? Eventually it's going to come down to trade-offs. What do we want to see versus what do we want to pay for? What are we willing to do? And it's important to remember that the site is 40 acres. So if something can't necessarily make sense at the Char House, that doesn't mean it can't make sense on a different building. And the Char House is still there preserved and doing what we want it to do. But there's so many ways that this development can be done. And so through the RFQ and the RFP, it'll be up to everybody to look through those and try to figure out what's going to be the best path. But
for what it's worth,
we'll have a lot of financials in it.
Jessica, could I add to that?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so there were, I think it was very rare, maybe like a person or two suggested the idea that nothing happened there, just be a park. I think most people, while a park is, nice, I think there was a real understanding of the opportunity, so that they wanted open spaces and civic spaces, plazas and things like that, but more sort of small scale that were sort of mixed in amongst a development. So that's just sort of one note there. To Jessica's point about the entire site, one of the things that we talked about with the community is, there's a lot of empty land in that, most of it's empty in that 40 acres. And so you can really look at that as an opportunity to easily generate revenue that then can offset costs for redevelopment of the existing structures that are there. The other thing that we talked about is, and you notice each time I mention, I say, you partner with the developer or however you decide to move it forward. Just looking at lots of different cities that we've worked in over the years, Carmel, Indiana is a good example. They've just done amazing things with public-private partnerships. And, in some cases, the city will gain control of a piece of property and they'll make it available to a developer for $1 or whatever. And then all of a sudden now the sky's the limit. The developer, they're unshackled from the sort of financial realities of things. And then some places say, well, that doesn't work because, we need to recoup some of our costs. And so, okay. And so you sort of do this cost benefit analysis that Jessica was referring to, but there seemed to be a presumption from a lot of people at the beginning of the process that somehow the city was going to be responsible for paying for lots of things or for developing this or whatnot. And I could see that, knowing that you guys have invested so much in order to get the property under control. In my mind, in our experience, it's most typical that you're just really like creating the opportunity, setting the stage for a developer, and your partnering is that you've got this asset and you can contribute it or however some amount of it or whatever that then sort of makes the financial lift easier for other things. And so you can decide how much to leverage that in order to have your dreams come more or less true in that regard. And so who's going to pay for it in general, in my mind, just in our experience around the country, it's just simply just the developer is going to pay for most of everything typically. And you guys can do, be as involved as you choose to as a community.
Yeah, because like I mentioned at the beginning, us taking ownership of the land and getting over that barrier to entry, it opens up a lot more doors for the developer to put their money in things that generate sales tax, property tax, and all the other things that come back to the city long term.
Councilmember Miller, do you have any questions or comments?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. No, I think the presentation was good. I'm glad to see all the information, and I was happy to be there myself. I think this is the beginning of the process for us.
Kai is watching the dogs until Friday.
Great minds.
And the sister's watching.
We had to have another follow-up workshop just to take what we've received tonight and the discussion.
We'll be home next Tuesday night.
Visit all of that before we go forward.
Misha and Aaron are going to take a little vacation, so we're going to watch the kids.
I think Trey's on the phone there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you having fun, Rhea? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Rick. Yeah. Are you done or? You're good? Okay, very good. Okay. Councilmember Single?
Yeah. So are you also looking for some feedback from us in terms of way forward today, or there would be opportunity before you make an RFP?
Say that again.
So do you want some feedback in terms of way forward, especially on the economic side? Or I will provide my view on this based on what Brian said. I think it is important that what people want, obviously, is a community space around the Char House where the history is preserved plus some green space. But it has to be balanced with some retail, some commercial, as well as residential, because somebody will have to pay for it. Yep. I think the overriding factor in my mind at least should be that we should not be consuming any more tax dollar into it. Mm-hmm. We can possibly give incentive going forward for the future business. We have already made our contribution in terms of purchasing the land and paying for the preservation of the Char House. So that should be the limit of our tax dollar to spend. That's personal recommendation. Rest everything, as Brian said, should be paid by developer with the promise of future profit. And that's a guidance from my side in designing the RFP.
Okay, no, that's fair. Yeah, so today is mostly just getting the final thoughts and stamp of approval on these guiding pillars. And when we bring it back, we would go through it again and talk about the changes. The opportunity for you to look at those type of nuances is really going to be when we start to not only look at the RFP, the proposal, but when you actually negotiate a master development agreement. That's a long process. Like you're negotiating every single thing. And so that's where it'll really get down into the nuts and bolts of things like that.
Or Watley?
Maybe this will be the last question. I'm sorry. And on that note, can you please explain the financing that we've done? I don't want people to think that we use an ad valorem tax on this. The process that we're using to fund what we're doing right now and our plan in the future is flexible depending on the developer, so that the recouping that money may be a little different. We may reinvest with a third party or whatever. But for the purpose of understanding, can you explain how we invested the money and the funding for the purchase?
The CO?
Yes.
So the CO, it's backed by property tax. However, our economic development corporations, the 4A and the 4B, are contractually obligated to pay that debt. So already that debt is coming from the corporations and paying back the city on that. And that's because this is ultimately an economic development project that should drive from sales tax. So again, backed by property tax because of how the city is structured, and you get better interest rates, you get better people that go for the, to actually do the call out for the bid, but it is being paid by 4A and 4B. Which are? Sales tax dollars. Sorry, I'd say that too much. You think of it, no. Sales tax.
Susan, yeah, when I say tax dollar, I included sales tax in it. That is my thought, yeah.
Councilmember Von der Haar?
Just to follow up on that, at this stage of the game, there are so many unknowns, and what I don't think we want to do at this stage of the game is put limitations that would force a developer to go down a path that may not be the right path.
Yes.
So I think that we need to be, as I said earlier, we need to be, have a big, bold vision. It's so much easier to say no than it is to say yes, but I got to work my tail off to make yes happen.
Yes.
And we don't want to force the development community into this box that makes us settle for something less than what we could otherwise get. So that would be my caution.
Yes, sir.
What other questions or comments from council? Okay, Councilmember Betcher.
To follow up on Councilman Vonderhaar's comment, at what point in the game do we need to know what our strategy is? Obviously, it sounds like there's a lot of options on the table. We could lease the land out in a long-term lease. We could sell the land eventually. We could sell it for $1 if we want to give away all the tax money. But at some point, we're going to have to make a decision, right? And it's going to be based on what the residents want, because they're the ones that footed the bill in the first place, and we need their support to do it. So at what point do we need to decide, and is that going to have any impact on the development agreement or who may be interested in the project in the first place?
Not necessarily. I mean, that will need to be figured out in some ways around the RFP process going into the master development agreement. Again, those are like hundreds and hundreds of pages. And those conversations happen a lot with like our bond counsel and our outside legal that are experts in the taking out a bond and how you can do those transfers. There's certain legal limitations that we're going to have to work with, and a developer is well aware. It happens all over the United States. But those conversations would happen more at that stage.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Well, anyway, it was important to council for citizens to provide their input, so I want to thank everyone who participated in the process, and I really like the idea of the water activation, the lookout point, bringing the farmers market back there, and of course we had the Fort Bend Children's Discovery Museum there, so keeping space for them some point on the site. And also, there's been some interest in possibly movie production there on the commercial side, because there's been there's a lot of funding available from the state of Texas to bring movie production to Texas. So anyway, thank you very much, Jessica and Brian. And we also look forward to the next steps on this.
So our next step would be to bring this back to you guys in February to adopt the vision and guiding pillars, adding in some of those specifics that we talked about. So then we can move to getting this RFQ out that people are so anxiously waiting for, and to keep this train moving.
Great. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you again.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you, Brian, Anna.
Thank you. Good to see you all again.
Okay, next item 10 is the public hearing. Receive and hear all persons interested in an ordinance authorizing participation in the Texas Enterprise Zone Program and nominating Applied Optoelectronics, Inc. as an enterprise project. First consideration, which is consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance number 2400, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, authorizing participation in the Texas Enterprise Zone Program and nominating Applied Optoelectronics, Inc. as an enterprise project. And we have Jennifer Alexander, Business Development Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be discussing the Texas Enterprise Zone Program, a state of Texas incentive nomination for Applied Optoelectronics. I'm joined today by Stephen Murray, the CFO and Chief Strategy Officer, along with John Kroll from Applied Optoelectronics. A little on the company. Applied Optoelectronics is in Sugar Land headquartered global manufacturer of fiber optic products. These power data centers, broadband, and telecommunications infrastructure worldwide. AOI was formed in 1997 out of UH Lab Space. There was a headquarter establishment in Sugar Land in 2000 and a headquarter expansion in 2016. Their newest project is an expansion into lease space at 1111 Gillingham, which is approximately 200,000 square feet. The capital investment on this project is $77 million, and they are to create 500 new jobs at or above 61,240. The Sugar Land Development Corporation approved an incentive through 4A sales tax dollars in the amount of $2 million. This will advance and strengthen advanced manufacturing presence, onshoring production here in the U.S., and they will be for AI data center transceivers. AOI is now expecting to hit $150 million in capital investment, and thus they're interested in the Enterprise Zone program. So they've gone from $77 million to $150 million. A little on the enterprise zone. This program is a state sales and use tax refund program designed to encourage private investment and job creation in economically distressed areas of the state. Who can apply? Texas communities must nominate companies in their jurisdiction to receive an enterprise zone designation and thus be eligible to receive the state and sales use refunds on the qualified expenditures. Applied Optoelectronics in Sugar Land is not in an enterprise zone, but if a qualified business would like to apply, the city or community can nominate them. They would be subject to 35% of the new employees would have to be from economically disadvantaged areas, or they would have to be enterprise zoned residents. So the typical percentage is 25%. Not being in a zone, you'd be qualified at 35%. So you have 4 different categories here. Applied Optoelectronics, again, is expected to hit $150 million in capital investment, so they would be considered for a double jumbo project. The companies must meet the capital investment thresholds, create and or retain these new jobs here in economically disadvantaged individuals, enterprise zone residents, or veterans. For AOY in a double jumbo project, you must create all of the 500 jobs. You cannot use retention. So 35% equates to about 175 jobs out of those 500. So why is this action before council today? The company has requested the city support to pursue this state program for its expansion. The project includes a significant capital investment and job creation that aligns with our economic development priorities, and city staff has reviewed the project and determined it meets the state's eligibility and competitiveness criteria for this designation. Again, per the program, communities must nominate the companies. So this is strictly a program nomination. No local funds are being committed. We've already committed for a sales tax dollars through a Sugar Land Development Corporation direct incentive of $2 million. No revenue is being rebated by Sugar Land. All incentives, if awarded, are paid by the state of Texas, and the enterprise zone designation is limited to 5 years from the designation period. The company must meet state performance requirements to receive any benefits, and compliance is handled through the comptroller's office. Next steps would be to hold a public hearing on the first reading of ordinance number 2400, and the second reading and adoption would come at an upcoming city council meeting.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Linda, has anyone filled out a comment card?
No, Mayor, they have not.
Okay, at this time, I would like to close the public hearing. Does anyone on council have any questions or comments? No. Okay, well, have anybody have a motion to approve? Okay, motion by Councilmember Single, second by Councilmember Watley. Let's vote at this time. Okay, and I've got a motion 7-0. I've got a thumbs up of Rick. Well, anyway, we're really glad that we've had AOI in Sugar Land for 25 years. Look forward to many more years, and we are really looking forward to your expansion. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. And thank you, Jennifer. Okay, next item is 11, ordinances and resolutions, and we have 4 items under consideration. First, item A, approval of tax-exempt bond issuance for Logos Preparatory Academy. Consideration of an action on Resolution 2601, approving the issuance of tax-exempt bonds by the Arlington Higher Education Finance Corporation for the benefit of Logos Preparatory Academy in accordance with Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code. And we have Meredith Reedy, our city and attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. So a little bit of background about this item. Section 147 of the International Revenue Code requires City Council to approve, and I'm using air quotes here, the issuance of tax-exempt bonds if it's used for the benefit of a private school. You have done a previous one back in July of 2021 for the infrastructure over at Sky Harbor. It was also a 147, but it was a different section. So what does Resolution 2601 do? It allows you to check the box under the under the IRS regulations, basically confirming that they are located within the city's jurisdiction. Does not do, does not create a debt or obligation to the city, does not pledge any taxes or city credit to repay the debt, doesn't impact your credit rating, doesn't constitute any endorsement or waving a flag of excitement for Logos Academy, does not grant zoning, land use, or permitting approvals. All it does is checks the box and allows them to issue tax exempt bonds. If you don't approve it, they can still issue bonds, it just won't be tax exempt. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and approve Resolution 2601 and checking the box for the IRS and allow them to issue these bonds. Any questions?
Okay. So we've got a motion approved by Councilmember Watley, and who was first over here? Second by Councilmember Von der Hart. Let's vote at this time. And the motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Meredith. Next, item B, consideration of and action on City of Sugarland Resolution Number 2603, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugarland, Texas, authorizing the issuance of Imperial Redevelopment District Unlimited Tax Bonds, Series 2026, in the amount of $9 million. And we have Rashida Bashoon, our investment and debt manager. Rashida?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Today, Imperial Redevelopment District is requesting the city's approval to issue unlimited tax bonds for $9 million. The district was created by the 2005 state legislature. It contains approximately 746 acres within the city limits. It is similar to a MUD, but with more powers. The district has no expiration date, and any debt issue is not any of the city's obligation. The district is located 30 miles southwest of Houston. Access to the district is provided by State Highway 6 and US Highway 90A, and on the north by Voss Road. Imperial Redevelopment District is a mixed-use community, consists of single and multifamily residential, commercial, retail, and also the Sugarland Heritage Museum and Visitor Center, Fort Bend Children's Discovery Center, and Constellation Field. The district 2025 tax rate is 97 cents, with 88 cents for debt service and 9 cents for maintenance and operation. The district 2025 taxable assessed value is $545 million. To date, the district have issued 10 bonds, which total $64.46 million. There are two road bonds, 3 tax bonds, and 4 bonds for water, wastewater, and drainage. A total of $54.26 million is outstanding on these issues. The planned bond issuance for $9 million covers construction costs, which total $6.3 million, and non-construction costs for $2.6 million. Staff is requesting approval of resolution number 26-03, authorizing the issuance of $9 million for Imperial Redevelopment District Unlimited Tax Bonds, Series 2026. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Jacobson.
Thank you, Mayor. Like so much of Sugarland, this is how we finance construction. This is how we put in roads. This is how we put in water and sewer. And we create districts that tax the users of these utilities and this infrastructure until they're paid for, and then it goes away eventually. And the Finance and Audit Committee met, and Ms. Bashoon presented this, and we questioned her, and we're completely satisfied that this is not going to be a general obligation of the city, and therefore I move to approve.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Jacobson, and then we have a question by Councilmember Single.
Yeah. So my question is, I think this is an important project for the district development, so I'm fully supportive of it. I saw that out of 9, 2.6 million is going for non-development, non-construction cost. What is it we are paying developer for? $1.8 million is going to the developer.
So I do have Aaron Carpenter here from ABRH, and he can gladly answer the question.
So the primary driver behind the non-construction costs is there's about $1.89 million for something called developer interest, which is meant to compensate the developer for the amount of time that has passed before the district has funded and reimbursed them for the project costs. In this case, about 3/4 of it is going to Meritage Homes, who developed the Crown Garden development. And they have project costs that date back to 2016. Under the TCEQ rules, with the TCEQ's permission, you can reimburse them for up to 5 years of costs, so long as the total amount of costs don't exceed 4 years of interest on the bonds. It's customary to do that, and that's what we've proposed. And there are also some issuance costs related to, legal fees, financial advisor fees, things that are customary for municipal bond issuances. But that is by far the largest contributor to the non-construction costs. But it is meant to compensate the developer for their project costs for actual infrastructure.
Follow up.
So is this as per our agreement with the developer?
Yes.
What we are paying?
Yes, this is in line with the redevelopment agreement entered into in 2016.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Jacobson, a second by Vonderhaar. Let's vote at this time. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Rosita. Next item, C, first and final consideration. Consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance Number 2398, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, amending the fiscal year 2025 to 2026 budget for the City of Sugar Land, Texas, to provide that the revised budget address funds relating to certain capital and operating budget matters, and that this amendment be adopted as the budgeted amount for those funds. And we have Shalay Stedman, our Director of Budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to bring forward a budget amendment, specifically in connection with our carryover. So a little bit of background on this. The budget is adopted annually prior to the start of each fiscal year and may be amended as needed. Generally, we bring the budget forward with an ordinance 3 times a year, the first being at the adoption, the second during this carryover process, and the third being at the year end with our projections amendment. Carryover items represent expenditures that were budgeted in the prior fiscal year for goods and services that have not yet been received. Because appropriations lapse at the end of the fiscal year, City Council must reauthorize those carryover items in this current year's budget. And then this item was reviewed with Finance and Audit on January 8th. So I'm just going to walk through our major operating funds and the carryover items. First of all, our general fund is starting off fiscal year 26 with $7.9 million in fund balance over the budgeted estimate. Revenues in fiscal year 25 ended the year $1.5 million better, with sales tax making the majority of it at $1.2 million. Expenditures were lower by $6.4 million. However, the majority of these savings were due to items that were still underway but not completed by the end of fiscal year 25, with $4.9 million being requested for operational carryovers. In addition, there is one amendment: insurance payments received in fiscal year 24 for the total loss of Ladder 4, totaling $0.7 million, are being requested as a budget amendment to move those funds to the capital project fund where expenditures for the replacement unit were funded. After these changes, the fund is estimated to end fiscal year 26 with $2.3 million in available fund balance over the budgeted estimate. Jumping to our utility fund, the utility fund came into fiscal year 26 with $11.7 million in fund balance over the budgeted estimated numbers, with revenues better by $0.54 million and expenditures lower by $11.2 million. Roughly half, or 5.7 million was in operational expenditures, with 3.65 million requested for carryovers for items or services not yet completed. The fund also saw lower expenditures for our debt service and issuance costs totaling 5.5 million, and that's just based off of we issued the bonds later in the year, so we had one less debt payment. The requested 3.65 million in carryovers include a variety of ongoing operational, maintenance, and emergency repair requests. After these changes, the fund is estimated to end fiscal year 26 with 8.1 million in additional available fund balance. Next, we have our airport fund. The airport fund ended fiscal year 25 slightly lower than expected. The airport has a total of 443,000 in operating carryovers and is requested to allocate an additional 1.1 million in additional funding, primarily for purchasing fuel inventory for resale with the anticipated traffic increase from FIFA this upcoming summer. The airport estimates to generate an additional 1.6 million in revenue from this additional volume. After these changes, the fund is expected to end fiscal year 26 at the budgeted estimated available fund balance of 13.83 million. And then, there we go. I'm just going to walk through the remaining carryovers and amendments, starting out with our ARPA fund. Fiscal year 25 ended with 2.4 million in unspent funding for projects. All funding has been committed to projects and must be spent by December 2026, so we're just rolling over that remaining funding for things that have yet to come through. We have two amendments in our capital projects. The first is 1.3 million in the insurance payments received for the total loss of Ladder 4 to the project CMU 2505. This is allocating the funds. This includes the 670,000 that will be moved from the general fund, along with the second check we received that already went into CIP fund. This just allows us to spend that money. The second is capital improvement plan project 2502. The airport received a grant funding, which council already received and accepted. This just allows them to use that funding for the fuel fund project. Next, we have our tourism fund. This is 303,000 in operational carryovers. Our stormwater fund has 283 requested, a majority of it going to the replacement of the weir gate at Brook Lake. We have our high-tech fund at 117,000 for servers and equipment not yet received. Court technology has an amendment for a small amendment for 33,000 for the ticket writer maintenance and software expenditures. And then the opioid litigation fund has the reappropriation of unspent settlement funds. And finally, the public art fund has 1,400 in it for incomplete maintenance of an art piece located in front of Smart Financial. So with that, staff recommends the approval of ordinance number 2398, amending the fiscal year 26 budget to reflect the carryover funding from fiscal year 25.
Okay, Councilmember Jacobson? Well, yeah, I'll call you next. Yeah. Oh, okay, Councilmember Single.
Yeah, I have a question/suggestion. So something which you did not present was how this carryover will be incorporated in the budget, but from the submission which you have done, I have seen that individual costs which is rolling over are going into the different line item like public works, police, etc. So if I understand correctly, this 5.6 million for the general fund which is rolling over is item which we planned in 2025, could not spend for whatever reason and will be spending in 26. For 26, we approved a budget of 140.6 million. When we approved. So my request would be if you can carry this or modify the budget as single line item, saying carry over from 25 into one bucket. Because the danger of the way what you're doing right now, by merging it in an individual line item, the 2026 budget is reflecting 146 million. which is over what we budgeted. And this year it is not a problem, but when we do the budgeting for 2027, then you will compare it with inflated number. You will compare with 146. So if you want to increase by 2%, you will go from 146 to 148, but you have essentially gone from 140 to 148. And this is the point I had raised during the last budget, because same point had happened in 24 to 25. The carryover were rolled on to the main budget, and when we compare the next year budget, we are comparing with a kind of exceeding budget or inflated budget, because that includes the rollover. So is it possible to have a line item saying only carryover from 2025 into 26 budget?
So yes, in general, in the past, we've always just presented the revised budget, and that includes all of the amendments that have gone through the year. But we do have the adopted budget that you can see from what we adopted in September.
Yeah.
And amended in October.
And my alternate request would be, if you merge it in the individual line, when we come to 27 budget, you compare with the original approved 2025 6 budget. Is that possible? Because I raised this point in 26 budgeting, and at that time we were told, no, we can't compare with the original budget, we will compare with whatever is the final budget. But my worry is that because final budget includes the carryover, you are comparing with an inflated number.
I understand.
You understand what I'm saying?
We can show it how.
Yeah. So this resolution can go as it is, but I wanted council member to be aware of it, because in 6 months when we discuss 27 budget, we need to be aware that we can't compare with 146, because that includes 25 cost also. So we need to then compare at that time with what we budgeted for 2026.
Yeah. Okay, yes, Councilmember Watley. I'm sorry, should lady follow up?
Just as clarification, when we build the budget, we build off of the base budget from the previous year. It's not built off of these changes.
Thank you, Mayor. To your point, Sanjay, or Councilmember Singal, I think what he's asking, and you may get this, but it's kind of occurring to me if you don't understand, and not you, but in general don't understand, are you asking to differentiate the allocated funds that we have seen coming here as carryovers from the actual budget? Is that what we're doing?
I'll tell again what I'm asking, because in corporate sector we do all the time. Typically, we take an accrual during the financial itself for things which are not expended. But here, of course, we didn't take accrual. So here what I'm asking is the budget rollover to be recorded as one line item saying budget rollover from 2025 into 26 budget. That will make sure that when we are doing 27 budget, we have a clarity that what is the budget for 2026 and what is the rollover from 25.
Yes, Councilmember Vandahar.
Shalay, I think you answered the question a minute ago. The statement you made that when we prepare the 27 budget, we build that budget based on the base 26 budget,
Yes.
not including any adjustments that are made, including this one or any other adjustments we might make for the rest of this year. When we build the next year's budget, we use the prior year's base budget as our starting point. Thank you.
So I will just say one thing to correct. So the sheets which were presented to the council at that time during budgeting had actually the final budget, not the base budget. And I had requested to include the base budget into that sheet. You know, there are multiple columns to compare. The original base budget was missing from that sheet. What was there was the final inflated budget. And whatever is done is done. All I'm requesting is when we do 27 budget, the base budget column should be included. That's all I'm requesting.
Yes, Councilor Jacobson.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the budget amendments as presented.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Jacobson and a second by Councilmember Vandahar. Let's vote at this time. And the motion passes 7-0. Next, item D, first consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance number 2399, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, amending the airport community hangar rental fee to 75 cents per square foot per month with a minimum monthly charge of $1,237.50. And again, we have Shalay Stedman, our Director of Budget.
Thank you. This is just a quick change to one of our fees. The original fee it was 50 cents per square foot per month with a minimum of 825, and we're just updating the fee to 75 per square foot per month with a minimum of 1,237. And this just aligns with the market range identified in the airport master plan. And a little bit of background, this hasn't been changed for 15 years. So it's about time for that change. The revenue impact is about 11,000 or 12,000, and we did review this with the Finance and Audit Committee. And lastly, the last steps, this will be brought forward for the second reading on February 3rd. And with that, we recommend.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve by Councilmember Watley, a second by Councilmember Single. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, let's vote at this time. And motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Shalay. Next is item 12, City Council and City Manager reports. First, we'll hear from Councilmember Watley.
You got me. Okay. Mayor, I'm going to talk about Sugarland Rotary.
Okay.
Wednesday, January 14th, I had the honor of introducing our mayor to speak at Sugarland Rotary, where she gave the state of the city and did a wonderful job. Thank you for doing that. And I think the other thing I want to mention is Saturday, January 10th, conversations with council. Our staff did a fabulous job. You guys knocked it out of the ballpark, taking what we talked about, driving it, and doing something totally different with the community. I hope our community felt heard and not talked to, because we sat at those tables and we had some good conversations. I think we went over an hour overtime, and thank you to all of our council who showed up. It was Stuart and myself and Rob and Jim Vandehar. But every single council member showed up and played a part of this. So thank you to everybody who came, and thank you to staff for making this a success.
Thank you. Councilmember Single.
Yeah, so I attended the town hall, organized by the city, along with Suzanne. But I also had a town hall in District 2, which is conversation with council for District 2, and I thank all the other council members who came there to support. We also had a town hall by the Fort Bend Pantsa Live, which I attended to talk about the animal issues. And thanks Melissa also, who attended the workshop. It was very useful. Attended the 5-year anniversary for Silver Hearts Association. And finally attended a Care for You clinic ribbon cutting in my district. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Vandehar.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended both of the council presentations. Kudos to the city for a fantastic job setting it up. Kudos, Sanjay, for you leading the one for District 2. You did a phenomenal job. Very, very well done. I also participated in the Silver Hearts event. What an honor those parents have for having such a fine young man. We gave that young man a proclamation a couple of meetings ago, and he just continues to amaze us all. So, and then the last but not least, certainly, I attended the Credo packaging ribbon cutting for their new manufacturing line they put in their facility. What a great company, what a great group of leaders, and it was a very, very nice event.
Thank you. Councilmember Jacobson.
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to a couple of the events that have already been mentioned, I attended the Austin Parkway Elementary Community Meeting discussing the potential closing of said school.
Thank you. Councilmember Betcher.
Thank you. So I also attended the Districts 1 and 3, as well as the District 2 community meeting. Great turnout. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council members, for putting it on. I also attended the Care for You primary care opening off Highway 90. It's a new facility. And if you're free, Councilmember Miller is having his open town hall meeting on the 31st for District 4. So look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you. Is Councilmember Miller still there, or did he drop off?
He is no longer on
He's no longer with us. Okay. And so anyway, I joined some youth from the Youth and Philanthropy and helped in the cleanup at the San Ysidro Cemetery there in Sugar Creek. And I was on the Building Texas show to talk about all the exciting things that are happening in Sugar Land. And I gave out awards at Brunch for a Better Tomorrow, hosted by CKW WAC Magazine, which stands for Caring, Kindness, and Wisdom. So, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, we put out some social media on this, but we are expecting winter weather this weekend. And as always, we are prepared and ready to go and already have teams together. Want to get our public's help on this as well, taking care of your pets, your plants, your pipes, your people. We'll take care of the rest. And I want to thank our staff that will be working overtime and putting themselves sometimes in harm's way to protect us. And so thank you very much. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. So having no further business, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you all for coming.